questions about vaccine supplies. Will Canada need to tap into over 1 million vaccines from COVAX to meet its targets? Now look, COVAX, as we've been speaking about, the overall goal is to help low and middle income countries get the vaccines. Canada paid about $440 million into it, and we're allowed to take $220 million worth of doses. But Canada is now the only G7 country to actually try to access this supply. To talk about that and the Proud Boys being designated as a terror group, the Conservative leader Erin O'Toole joins us now. Good to have you back on the program. Procurement Minister Anita Nance says Canada is expecting 1.1 million doses from COVAX by the end of March. Now, I know there's some discrepancy about that, but let me avoid that. Canada is the only G7 country to try to get these doses. Right thing to do. What does that tell you?
It tells me they've failed. You know, the Prime Minister and Minister Anand have talked about their portfolio, Evan. You've heard that many times. We have more contracts than anyone else. They won't release them, and each week we get fewer vaccines. In fact, we can't even get them to admit how many Moderna are coming for the rest of the month. So this is a sign that we don't have a stable supply, and they're willing to go into a fund and an organization that was meant to help balance off the developed world with the developing world. And so we're last in the G7, and he's admitting he's got a worse plan than some countries in the developing world. So it's disappointing. We need to do better because we need vaccines to turn the corner and get our economy and our life back to normal.
Okay, but let me just push back. First of all, we're not expecting, you know, Moderna only gives Canada supplies every 3 weeks, so we're not getting any next week and the week after, but the week after that we should. But just on this COVAX thing, Canada paid into this fund, okay? So the purpose of it was so Canada could get drugs from it, vaccines, and developing countries could get. Would you access that fund? Is it legitimate for Canada? We paid for those vaccines. Should Canada, I mean, they're AstraZeneca, when it's approved, should Canada get those drugs?
I want vaccines here as quickly as possible, Evan. But the fact that they're going to have to go to the supply being provided by COVAX is a failure on the part of the Prime Minister. They talk about all the contracts, the portfolio. They have no ability to manufacture it here. We're really the only developed G7 country without that domestic capacity. Other countries have put it together within the year. Mr. Trudeau has not. They won't release the contract, so we don't really know what they've committed to, whether they've opted into options or things like this. The COVAX was intended to be the developing world helping others. If we have to draw on this so quickly, it's because there is no plan, Evan. So it's sad. I want vaccines as quick as possible, but it's sad we're going to take it from really a fund that was meant to make sure there was equity around the world.
Okay, let's talk. You said there's no plan. The Liberals push back, Mr. O'Toole, say, of course there's a plan. The plan is 6 million doses of the Moderna and the Pfizer by March. They're going to be backloaded, but the Prime Minister must have said, as he said, 6 times today in question period, we're going to get those and we're going to hit our September deadline. Why are you so pessimistic and skeptical when he keeps saying we've got assurances that our supplies will be met despite the drought we're in now?
We won't get written assurances from the EU about the protectionism issue. They won't release the contract 7. And in terms of the 22nd delivery, February 22nd with Moderna, they removed reference from the website, and the general who's delivering the distribution to our provinces who are ready to go can't say a number that's coming. That is not transparent. That's hiding. There's either no plan or they don't want to share the real plan with Canadians. So I asked the Prime Minister this twice today. They would have to vaccinate 2.1 million people per week to make his September promises. And we're getting no vaccines. So, Prime Minister, be honest with people. This is a crisis. They deserve an honest. If we're behind, take some leadership, Mr. Trudeau, and be open and transparent with Canadians. It's disappointing, Evan.
Oh, now, again, we have a drought, and they're going to have to ramp it up, and the pressure will be on the provinces to get a huge number of doses that may be, if they actually come, will be backloaded. But let me just ask you, so what action would you take if you were in the job now? What action would you take now? I'm not talking about getting domestic production up, because that couldn't happen now. What action would you take now to get more vaccines than the government is doing?
I'd be getting written assurances from the EU. We don't need just calls. We need long-term relationships, and those have frayed under the Prime Minister. There's the potential for U.S. supply, the Kalamazoo plant as well. Has that been brought up with President Biden? He hasn't been bringing up Line 5 and other economic issues. Is there a plan there? Is there any way we can accelerate the domestic capacity with a licensing agreement for some of the vaccines that are in development? There's a lot of things that can be looked at, but you can't divorce their inaction and failure of the last year, Evan, with today. I would not have been behind. This is where having a background in the military and the private sector in building projects, getting things done, we have suffered. Why was there ever a partnership with China? That was a ridiculous idea that blew 5 months of our planning time. Why didn't they learn the lessons from the first wave, where planes were stuck on tarmacs, countries were hoarding PPE? That was in March and April. Did they think it was going to be different with the vaccine? So we're caught short-footed. I wish we weren't. I want vaccines as quickly as possible so we can turn the corner. But I would have run things differently from day one. And it's this government announces things and there's never any follow-through.